All right. How should I start this?
I know how I start things, but I can't tell you how to start things.
No, you can't tell me how to start things. I have to find my own way. It's like, what's up, gamers? No, I shouldn't do that.
Maybe
Welcome, everyone. Oh, wait. We don't have music for this, do we? There's a
you
lot of
should
things.
sing, Adam.
I should get a kazoo and then do the like the old NFL on TV theme.
The battle theme. Hell yeah.
There you go. Yeah, should just do that on the kazoo. It's fair use.
I don't think that's true. I don't think it is fair use. Whatever.
All right. Well, welcome everyone to the first episode of the Amateur Hour podcast. It's a podcast about NFL football and stats and predictive analytics done badly. Well, and done well. Done well and done badly. It's a surprise which one each episode. Hi, I'm Adam, Borgmaster Redacted. I'm joined by Gino, that Pinguino Grieco.
Yes, I'm here. I'm the familiar
that
voice who's anchor. I'm on the show. I also sometimes watch football. Sometimes.
Yes, the footy ball. Also joined by Tyler, Grav Redacted.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm the voice you guys have never heard before, and the only reason I'm here is because Adam drugged me at a Taco Mac and told me we're doing a football podcast together.
Yes, he is tied to a chair. He is here under duress. Talk about football.
I don't say it, but that's how every one of my podcasts is recorded as well, under duress.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole conversation about art made under duress and its validity, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about football.
Oh, I don't know. I think football is art made under duress. As a sport.
That brings us to the first question. What is football? Or football Americano, I should say.
Well,
Yes.
Adam,
What is it?
I would say football Americano is quite simply that special time of year where we set aside all of our blind regional hatred that we get from politics and we embrace blind regional hatred based on solely nothing more than what city you're living in at whichever time. For 20 or so weeks, it is perfectly okay to hate that other team for no other reason than they're just not your team.
I would also say,
but is there a sport involved in there?
Yeah, so I would describe football Americano much like a coffee Americano. It is a darker, more bitter sport than the European variant. You throw a ball, which is oblong in shape, or run it. You can run it. You have 4 downs, they're called, 4 plays to get the ball 10 yards, which is some amount of meters. I don't know how many meters.
Like 9 meters or something?
Something like that. Yeah, for our metric brethren. You have to advance the ball, and if you don't, the other team gets the ball, and they get to advance it. And at the end of this field, which is 100 American yards, there's what is called an end zone, which is where you score. You get the ball into there. You can also kick the ball through the uprights. There are uprights, just like in
a giant
rugby.
Fork in the middle, right?
Yeah, a big old fork that you can kick the ball through for 3 points. And that's it.
Yes.
And a play ends one of 3 ways. One way is the ball falls to the ground. You throw it, and it just hits the ground. No one catches it. The second way a play ends is someone runs out of bounds. They go off the edge of the field to the right or the left. Or the third way is...
the ball.
While carrying the ball, yes. Or the third way is someone is violently tackled to the ground. And if their knees or elbows... While carrying the ball. And their knees or elbows make contact with the ground. I guess there's a fourth way, and it's the refs whistling because someone's injured, which oddly enough is pretty frequent.
Or someone did something against one of the many rules.
One of the many laws of football. Yes, that is how what I would say football is.
Okay, the personal definition I go with, and you can tell me how correct this is. So we all know that a man is a miserable little pile of secrets, right?
Yes, accurate.
And football is a sport made up of 22 men facing each other on a field at a time, right? So then so that makes football a large miserable pile of secrets.
Yes, that's 22 discrete piles of secrets mushing into each other for about an hour of real time.
And they're mushing because it's full contact is the important bit. These guys are violently throwing themselves into each other at full
That
force.
they are. Yeah, that is pretty accurate. So now you are caught up, dear listener, on what the sport of football is. And if you don't care, now I'm sure you do, now that you know it's a bunch of miserable piles of lies slamming into one another.
Yes, and I think one of the major characteristics of football is the amount of specialization per player. Like everyone has a set role and they do that set role. If your role is to be given the ball and run for it, that's your entire life. That's the only thing you do.
Yes.
Right? Or if your role is to hunt down and attack the quarterback of the other team, that's the one thing you do.
You bend at an angle. Football is so specialized that the person who plays tackle, which is the blocking position on offense, they block the large men of the other team to protect the quarterback. If you play left tackle, you do not play right tackle because all of your footwork has been trained for years for retreating to your left and not retreating to your right. That is how specialized it is.
Yes, and the quarterback, we should probably get into that because they're the closest
throw the
thing to
ball.
a team captain.
Yes.
Yeah, at the beginning of a play, they have the ball. It's their job to get the ball to where it's supposed to be, ideally. They throw it, they give it to a runner, or they run it themselves.
Yep, they touch the ball almost every offensive play.
So that makes them kind of like the stars of the team.
They're the most important player on offense in almost every circumstance.
Yes. It's also the role of the quarterback to sometimes get ragdolled by a 300-pound man.
Yes.
But ideally, that's not supposed to happen.
You try to avoid them getting suplexed, but sometimes it happens.
Because they also tend to be very expensive, those quarterbacks.
That they are.
So that's the short of it of what football is. So what's the NFL then?
That's the National Football League.
Is that the football league of the nation?
Of the American nation. The United
and there's
States of
32
America.
teams.
Correct.
Yes. There are 32 whole entire teams from 30 different cities, thanks to New York and Los Angeles.
Look, it's not New York's fault that it has more people than most states.
So I guess those teams are actually New Jersey teams.
They are in New Jersey.
Geographically.
Actually, there's 3 teams.
Accurate.
There's 3 teams in New York also.
Well, the New York State, there's 3 teams, but the city, there's 2, right?
Yeah, the Giants and Jets play in the same
unless something
stadium.
weird happened.
There's 1 New York team. There's 2 New Jersey teams, to be correct.
There you go.
Look, neither of you, I bet neither of you have been to the Meadowlands. It's not a fun place. New York did New Jersey a favor by putting a stadium there. It's just a big swamp. But
all right, well,
just a question: should we do the plug, the normal podcast plugs?
The plug?
The normal
at the beginning or the end?
Patreon. We usually do it at the front. We usually do it both.
Oh, at the front.
Actually.
Oh,
yeah, I can do it. I can rattle it off if you'd like.
yeah, you should do that.
Yeah, just a reminder, this is Deep Listens. This is a Deep Listens family of podcasts show. You can get in touch with the show at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. And you can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens, which now at the $3 tier, you'll get access to the OG Soncast, the new anime podcast we have going. You could also put a game into the Off the Deep End slush pile, which if you've heard Borgmaster before, that is probably where from. And you'd also get to hang out on the Discord with cool people like us. So, go do that. And now more football.
Yes, again, this is a Deep Listens podcast. Please support the Patreon so that our brave troops in the podcast wars can get paid. All right, so we have football. We have the NFL, which is the professional football in the United States of America. 32 teams, multiple cities. It's all very regional, right? The city or the media market you're from is the team you're supposed to root for, and every other team is Satan.
Yep. But some teams the more adjacent to your team the other teams are, the more Satan they are, generally speaking.
Especially if they're in your own division.
Especially if they're in your division.
Yes. However, Adam, as we get towards the end of the season, it becomes quite common to cheer for other teams if they're playing another team, if they lose, if that loss benefits your team. So come
Yes,
week 14, you're going to be cheering for all kinds of different cities.
yes, and everyone always roots against whichever team won the Super Bowl last. Now, the Super Bowl, for anyone that doesn't know, is the final game of the playoffs in the NFL. It has a special name because it's a very special event, the biggest sporting event in the U.S. and one of the biggest in the world every year. And and it's a very big deal to win that. So,
And it is.
who wants to break down the season structure?
Okay, so every season, because there are 32 teams, not every team plays every other team, unlike in some other sports. So the way that the NFL season breaks down is 18 weeks right now. They've changed it recently.
Yeah.
It is 18 weeks. There are 17 games, and every team gets a bye week. The bye week means you do not play that week. It is a week of rest and recovery, but the bye weeks are not evenly distributed in terms of when they happen and how many teams are on bye. There were from week 4 till 14 or 15.
Yeah, about around there.
Mm-hmm.
There's at least 2 teams on bye every week. You will play the teams in your division twice, so that's 6 games of the 17. You will also play the other teams in your division, in your conference. So there's the American Conference and the National Conference.
Yeah, National Conference.
And those conferences are, they kind of split the league in half. You will play the other teams that were in the same position as you in the standings in your division. So if you were last in your division, you will play the other teams that were last in their divisions.
Within your conference.
Within your conference. And then you will play 2 random other conferences. Usually,
Like the entire conferences.
Yeah, the entire conferences, and they are usually the one AFC, one NFC. So one in your division, one outside of your division.
Or one in your conference, one outside your conference.
Does that get you? So 6 plus 4 plus 4 plus 3. Yeah, that gets you to 17. And that's how that's how the schedule works.
Yeah. So the conferences and divisions are very evenly distributed. There's 16 teams in each conference. Each conference has 4 divisions named North, South, East, and West. Each division has 4 teams.
And one thing just to keep in mind, like how I listed out all those divisions and stuff, that means schedules are not equal. Not all schedules are made the same. If your division is bad and you're the only good team in your division, you might get 5 free wins. Or 6 free wins. If you were in last place last year, you will play all the other teams that were in last place. If another team in your division was in first, they are going to play all the first place teams. So that means that the overall strength of schedule from year to year varies pretty wildly between teams, even within the same division.
Yes. So it is. And so it is weighted to make things harder on teams that perform better. It's kind of a rubber banding mechanism, almost.
Would you say, yeah,
very
football is a
mathematical.
sport with rubber banding built into it, basically.
Yes.
It is trying to force every team to 500 because football is a sport about tight margins. They would love if every team was 500 and then everyone made the playoffs so that they could all play do or die games. Like that's what football is trying to engineer, basically.
And the season is very small per team, again, because it is full contact. Guys get injured a lot. They pull muscles. They usually pull muscles. There aren't that many concussions these days anymore, right? Or is that just propaganda?
That's propaganda. That is not
Oh,
true.
okay, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. So these guys are concussing each other. They are pulling every muscle in their body. Sometimes they're breaking stuff.
They're tearing ligaments.
These rosters.
Pretty much by playoff time, everyone is beat to hell.
So that's also why the teams are very large. There are 53 guys per team, even though like 11 take the field, or only like 20 or so take the field, 20-something take the field in any given game.
Yeah, usually around 22 between offense and defense, and then special teams is a third category of play. But that sometimes involves a handful more people. It's not usually that many more. Usually you don't play pure chaff in special teams. It's usually some offensive
Right.
defensive players are still there. So I would venture to guess maybe 40 players see the field every game, something in that ballpark.
Okay, and each team has 53 guys on it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's at least one backup per position.
At
usually.
least.
Because again, guys get the crap beat out of them.
And that is another reason
And
why
that's something to
football
keep in
has.
mind.
That's another reason football has rubber banding, right? Like every team is one injury away
Yes.
from being awful.
Every team is 1 or 2 bad moments away from having to start Tommy DeVito.
You take how you keep his name out of your mouth. Tommy DeVito's a saint.
He seems like a very nice guy.
Faison, out of all the names you could have said, he's a nice boy.
I mean, I'm not going to give Joe Flacco any flack.
I knew you were going to say it as soon as you picked Joe Flacco. I was wondering if you were going to say, give him flack, or just flack, but you went with the
you have to.
simpler one. God.
All right, so that's what football is, and we're about to start the 2024 season of football.
Yes, and we
plays
assume
over
you
the
now
fall
care
and
about
winter.
it. We assume you now care.
Yes,
about
we
it.
assume that.
You've made it this far.
Now you fully understand the sport and care, and are willing to listen to more of us talking about it.
Welcome.
So, what were the big things about the last season of football?
This man named Travis Kelce.
Okay, yes.
When a man loves a woman and the woman's name is Taylor Swift, it means that a lot of people start watching football. But very conveniently, the guy who's dating Taylor Swift was also on the best team in the world. So they won the Super Bowl. That's got to be the biggest thing, right?
For the second time in a row.
Yeah, for the second time in a row.
Yeah. The Chiefs, they won the Super Bowl last year, second time in a row, which now has all the knives out for them. If they weren't out before.
Yeah, I mean they've won
the biggest
Super Bowl,
target on their back
3 times in 4 years or 5 years.
3 times in 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah, because they won 20. Yeah, they won 2020. Brady got his last one, 21. It was the Rams in 22, and then they've done the last 2.
Yeah, I think so.
Correct.
Yeah.
I was just going to say another big theme of the 2023 season was the number of injuries to starting quarterbacks. Last year, we saw a ton of teams' number 1 QBs going down. Daniel Jones for the Giants. We saw Joe Burrow go down for the Cincinnati Bengals. And just overall, we saw a lot of different faces at the quarterback position. It didn't always equate to the best football to watch, but it led to a lot of fun and chaos.
It
led
was
to a lot
very
of
chaotic
chaos.
last season.
Yeah, and chaos is fun in a way.
But one team not affected by that chaos was again the Kansas City Chiefs, who ended up winning it all.
Their chaos was at wide receiver, but they have the best quarterback in the world, so he made it work despite the fact that he was throwing to maybe one of the worst wide receiving cores in the NFL.
I mean, but he did have Taylor Swift's boyfriend there.
Yeah, who is very good.
Yeah,
who was very good, one of the best at his position.
Mm-hmm.
Which is called tight end. Get all of your jokes out now about it. All right, are you done?
It sounds like butt.
About
it sounds like butt.
About his tight end.
It sounds like butt. Yeah, so I'd say those are the big, big storylines. The Bills still can't win. They've been good for a while, and they keep crapping out. That's something.
Just in the postseason.
In the postseason, they just can't make it to the conference championship or win the conference championship.
Hey, we can beat the Chiefs. We just can't do it in the postseason.
Okay. So another thing, the way the playoff structure works, it is divided between the 2 conferences. So in the playoffs, a team in the NFC, which is the National Conference, and a team in the AFC, the American Conference, will not see each other unless it's at the Super Bowl.
That is correct.
So that means in the lead up to the Super Bowl, the playoffs, a team like, say, the Atlanta Falcons will never play the Bills unless it's somehow at the Super Bowl, which that would be a very weird Super Bowl to have.
Yeah, that would be I wouldn't want to watch that one. I don't think. Those
So
aren't
that
two
means if
teams.
there is a good team,
Lies.
a dominant team in one conference, the other teams in that conference aren't going to be seeing the big game very often. And that's what's going on currently with the AFC and the Kansas City Chiefs.
That is
You could
correct.
say San Fran in the NFC as well. I think they're a cut above everybody else.
Sanford made it to
The Super
only
Bowl.
2 of the last 5 Super Bowls.
Yeah, but I think they're peaking last year and the next couple of years. It took them a while to get up to that level.
They've got
Yeah.
another
All right.
year
So we
or
should.
two of underpaid quarterback. So this is if they're
Yeah.
going to
There's that.
catch lightning in a bottle, it's going to be this year or next. But we'll see.
So we should probably say who our teams are
Sure.
to give some context, some to anchor things for our dear listeners.
Sure, go ahead. You go first.
Well, I'm the weird one. So geographically speaking, I should be an Atlanta Falcons fan, but I'm not. They've been dead to me ever since 2017 with their performance at Super Bowl 51. I will not go further into details on that. It's painful to think about. So I'm not going to root for them. So I like to do some misery tourism. Last year, I was a Denver Broncos fan because they were having a bad time,
They are.
and they're still having a bad time, but in a less interesting way this year. So I've decided I'm predicting that the Chicago Bears this year are going to have a tragic year, and
Okay.
therefore I'm now a Bears fan. Not Bears.
That's
So,
excellent.
so Adam, if the Bears come out and they're having the best season in their franchise history, are you going to stick with them or are you going to jump ship to somebody else?
Are you going to
Oh,
become a
I'll stick
Raiders
with
fan?
them. Never.
Yes.
No. I will stick with them and then be insufferable about it, just
Okay.
like a Chicago Bears fan.
Oh man, I really hope that if they're good, you're just constantly like, us long-suffering Chicago Bears fans have had it so bad for so long. This is our first quarterback that's actually good. Let me tell you, this is the best offense us Bears fans have ever seen. Not since Mike Ditka has. You need to just act like you've always
yeah.
been here. Act like you've been through the winters. Act like you know what a Chicago winter is. Act like you'd remember Rex Grossman. Just do that. Just make that your thing.
And start speaking with a Chicago accent.
Oh, that's hard. I have to work on that one.
You love deep dish pizzas and the bean.
Does anyone love the bean though? Because I've seen the bean. I'm not impressed by it.
I mean, I think that people on drugs appreciate the bean, right?
I mean,
If it's not for them, then who's it for?
does public art have to be for anyone? Anyway, before we get too deep, Gino, who's your team?
The New York Giants, the New York Football Giants, the G-Men, Big Blue, as they are called. I was a Giants fan since I've been little. I watched Eli Manning win both of those Super Bowls. The first one I watched with friends over at my house, and I had a fever. So I was feverish the entire time the helmet catch was happening. And one of my friends, after the Giants won, jumped up and punched the ceiling in my home because he didn't realize how low the ceiling was and hurt his hand. But yeah, it was
All right, so
it was good.
so
Giants have been good. They are in a downward spell right now. It's bad currently. But whatever.
are you saying that Dan Jones isn't the guy?
I don't know if he's the guy. It's hard to tell. You know how football, like quarterbacks can get spoiled like milk. If you put them behind a bad offensive line for long enough, they start to think that they have 1 second to make a decision or else they die. And that's not, you can't play quarterback that way. And I'm afraid Daniel Jones is currently in the running for his life, even if there's nothing to run from mode. So he might be ruined. But we'll see.
Wait, so are you saying that the Giants quarterback has some kind of traumatic response to playing football?
I do. I think that this has happened with multiple quarterbacks over the years. So Derek Carr's older brother was the quarterback for the Houston
Derek
Texans.
Carr is the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, by the way.
New Orleans Saints. His older brother played for the Houston Texans when they had an awful offensive line, and it basically ruined his career because by the time they had a good offensive line, he was so terrified of rushes that weren't there that he basically never waited for a full 7-second count again. Andrew Luck is another famous example, though he was a very good quarterback. But yeah, playing behind a Colts bad offensive line for a lot of years led him to early retirement because he had gotten beaten up so badly. Yeah, so I think Daniel Jones might be ruined, but we'll find out. Maybe the Giants line will be better.
I guess the better way to ask that question is, do you believe Daniel Jones is worth $40 million a year?
He plays quarterback in the National Football League, so maybe. That $40,000 is funny money with football contracts. I think if they cut him this year, he's owed very little. So I think he's worth finding out if he's any good.
Fair enough.
All right, final you, Tyler. Who makes you suffer?
Okay, so I identify as a long time suffering Buffalo Bills fan. I was still kind of too young during the Jim Kelly era. For those of you that don't know football, the Buffalo Bills are known for being that team for going to 4 consecutive Super Bowls and losing them all in new and tragic fashion. And then after that, we spent about 20, better part of 20 years in the desert going through one terrible quarterback after another. To say we were perpetually mid is putting it lightly. However, starting in the 2018 season, our savior came along in a man named Josh Allen. And it took him about 2 years to really get his feet under him. But since then, Buffalo has been a perennial playoff contender. We are one of the few teams that can routinely beat the Kansas City Chiefs in their own stadium during the regular season. And yeah, if you guys are interested in watching good football versus bad football, strongly suggest you give the Bills a watch this season.
I suppose it also didn't help that the Bills are in the same division as the New England Patriots, who had a roughly 16-year reign of terror
Oh,
in the AFC.
oh, by far. So, as for those of you that don't know, for that time period, the AFC
Like
East was terrorized by a man named Tom Brady, the quarterback in New England. Right now, he's regarded as the greatest quarterback of all time.
certainly the most successful quarterback of all time.
Yes. He has 6 Super Bowl rings under his name,
I thought
5
it
in
was
New
7.
England, 1 in
Oh,
Tampa Bay. Wait, is it?
is it 7?
Oh
Or am
boy.
I
Too
getting him
many.
am I getting him confused with Michael Schumacher for some reason? Because in my mind, similar guy. Just one's American, one's German. But yeah, so the Patriots prevented every other AFC East team, so that's the Bills, the Miami Dolphins, and the New York Jets, from doing anything for like 16 years.
Yeah, and I mean to be fair, the Bills were also bad at the time, so there was symbiosis there. Tom Brady was good, and the Bills were bad, which helped inflate Tom Brady's win totals, which allowed him to make the Super Bowls easily. I think most of the like reign of terror win streaks in football tend to coincide with a good team in a bad division.
Yeah. And
'Cause-
to that point, Gino, I think during that same time, the AFC was considered the weaker conference as compared to the NFC. Because really, who stood in Tom Brady's way? Peyton Manning and Ben Roethlisberger.
yeah, pretty much, pretty much
Yeah, in the AFC.
just the Colts and the Steelers.
Hmm.
So you could say maybe the same thing about the Chiefs now in the AFC West,
I think
because
it's somewhat fair. Yeah.
their competition are the Denver Broncos, who we said earlier are having a very bad time all around. Though, hey, who knows? Bo Nix could be the answer. We'll see. There's also the Las Vegas Raiders. Until a few years ago, the Oakland Raiders. They are the Raiders, which means they don't get very far.
They don't win football games.
They don't win football games. And then you have the Los Angeles Chargers, one of the two LA teams, with their golden boy Justin Herbert when he's not injured. But he is injured a lot, so they also don't win very many games.
He's also been known to just be on god awful teams. Imagine having a quarterback that's maybe 80% of Patrick Mahomes, but everybody around him is just awful.
So there's very little stopping the Chiefs from making it to the playoffs every year, the last few years.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Which means that they're guaranteed to be there this year, pretty much. So someone has to stop them. So who can stop the Chiefs? Who are the current top teams in the NFL?
This year,
Tyler,
let's find
this
out.
upcoming
Tyler.
season, who do we expect?
So, are you asking for just in the AFC or for potential NFC opponents in the Super Bowl?
Let's say yes. Who could possibly stop the Chiefs?
So, let's start in the AFC. So, and let's start with the AFC North. This conference is very competitive. In this division, you have the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Cleveland Browns. Out of that conference or out of that division, I like the Baltimore Ravens. They went 13-4 last season. They were one of the NFL's top offenses. They also displayed one of their top defenses. And I like them to get their revenge against the Chiefs in another playoff run.
Right, because they played the Chiefs in the AFC championship, which is kind of like the semifinal for the NFL,
Hmm.
and lost tragically there. Also, their quarterback got Player of the Year last
And
year,
most valuable player MVP.
but the MVP of the entire league last year. So Ravens are a good team, and the AFC North can produce more than one good team at a time.
Right. So I would say the other team to watch out for in that division is the Cincinnati Bengals. Last year, their starting quarterback, Joe Burrow, had a couple of different physical injuries, and eventually he had to sit out for the rest of the season. However, when he stays healthy, he's in that conversation with Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Cincinnati representing the AFC North this year.
That would also not be surprising. Oh, I guess we didn't mention before. Lamar Jackson is the quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. All right, so who else in the AFC is worth a damn, Tyler?
So uh, I'm going to head over to the AFC East. And again, this might be biased, but I'm going with my Buffalo Bills. They still have Josh Allen. They still have head coach Sean McDermott, who his claim to fame is producing really good offense or really good defenses with kind of no-name players. If you look at the Bills' defensive rosters, and then you look at the result, the two really don't line up. Another contender out of the AFC East this year, I think, is going to be the New York Jets. If you look at the Jets' performance over the last couple of seasons, you'll see them in kind of the below average to average range. But this year, quarterback Aaron Rodgers is going to be returning to the roster. Last season, he actually got a season-ending injury 4 plays into the season.
Sure did.
Now, yeah, yeah, and the big question is what is he going to look like? Is he going to look like the Aaron Rodgers of old? Is he going to be completely washed?
Because Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl before with the Green Bay Packers,
Correct.
like 12 years ago or something, right?
Right. So Aaron Rodgers was probably peaked during that Tom Brady era. Very good quarterback, very talented. He's kind of on the twilight years of his career, but I still think he's going to be very capable thrower of the football. I don't think he's going to have the elusiveness that he once had, but if he can stay in the pocket, stay upright, I think you're going to see the Jets be in that 9 to 11 win range. It wouldn't surprise me if they either outright won the AFC East or got one of the wild card slots.
There's a few things to unpack there. First, what's the pocket? Like the pants pocket?
So the pocket is generally referred to that area that a quarterback has to himself after the ball gets
Snapped.
Put into play?
yeah. So basically after the center gives the ball to the quarterback, he'll generally either hand it off to the running back or you'll see him take anywhere between 3 to 5 steps backward. This is what we call the pocket. It's the space around him that he has to throw the ball
And that is
without
created
anybody
by the
hitting
offensive
him.
line. That is so the offensive
Yes,
line
thank you, Gino.
generally retreats. If it's a passing play, the tackles, which are the furthest out players on the right and left, will retreat a few steps back to try and prevent the rushers from getting to the quarterback. The guards, which are the second most, like kind of the middle two large men, they retreat, but not as far. And then the center is the dead center of the offensive line. They generally stay in right kind of where they are. And they create this little semicircle where the quarterback is ideally safe, usually not, but theoretically safe.
Yes, and on the other side are the defense who are pushing against the offensive line, and they are trying to obliterate the quarterback before he can throw the ball.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's a good call on the Bills. I think the Bills are still going to be quite good, and honestly, the Ravens and the Bengals have been. Those are kind of the four teams in the AFC that have been threats for the last few years. Do either of you think that the Houston Texans or any other team jump out as like maybe making the jump to being a threat this year? Houston's a popular pick, that's why I floated their name out there. But do you think there's any other kind of like dark horse? Miami, maybe? Can I interest you in a Miami Dolphin?
I mean, if they don't get frostbite again, then
It's,
potentially.
it is a shame. Like every year, Miami looks so good, and then winter comes. And it's like, all right, we have to travel to Buffalo and play outside.
So
They are a team that is
let's
truly all about September and October.
let's talk about Miami bit, then we'll circle back to the Texans because I do think that is a team worth discussing. So the Miami Dolphins are one of those teams that absolutely fascinate me, but I think the Miami Dolphins experiment of having a average to good quarterback surrounded by elite wide receiving talent. I think enough teams at this point have seen that they're going to start being able to scheme and negate the strengths of that offense. Now, don't get me wrong. I still think you're going to see Miami just blowing out the weaker competition. But if it's one thing we learned from the 2023 season, this team struggles with quality competitors. I think the only playoff team they beat was the Dallas Cowboys, and
And that
they
team's
had a first
fraudulent.
round exit against. Yes,
Wait, the Cowboys? Aren't the Cowboys in the NFC?
they are. But Miami
They
played
played
the
them.
Dallas Cowboys
Oh, right, in the regular season.
in the
Okay.
regular season. Yes, I mean anything could happen, but I haven't seen anything of my out of Miami that leads me to believe they can contend with Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen in the AFC.
I mean, the thing I find really interesting about Miami is that they have a true philosophy of offense in a way that I appreciate. They are not just running the same offense as everyone else. Like the amount of motion they use, they basically only are interested in players with like 4.3, 4.4 speed. If you're slower than that, they don't want you on their team. Which it's just fun to watch a team that is that fast and like they can just turn any play into a touchdown very quickly by just outrunning people.
So a 4.3, 4.4 speed. Unpack that for the listeners.
Yeah, so we're talking I think it's the 40-yard dash, which is is it a 20-yard or a 40-yard dash that they clock that at?
40-yard.
40-yard dash. So yeah, it's taking 4.3 seconds or 4.4 seconds. Basically, anything under a 4.5 tends to mean you're elite fast. Like most average positional players will be in like the high fours, maybe low fives. Quarterbacks can get away with being slower. But yeah, if you're a wide receiver or a running back, ideally you're in the like high fours. But if you're in the low fours, you will just run away from people, right? In an open race, in a foot race, you will pull away from them. And that is kind of what Miami did. Kind of to Tyler's point, like a lot of their wins were complete baptisms. Like they destroyed teams that they beat. And then when they lost also in disappointing fashion. But like I think, did they put up 60 on the Broncos last year?
70.
70, right?
Yeah. So one of the big headlines from the last season was the Dolphins were able to achieve the largest points gap in any single game in the 60-year or so NFL history. Modern NFL history. By beating the Denver Broncos 70-20, which shouldn't be possible. No one thought it was possible, but it is possible apparently.
That's the thing. If you have a team that is that fast, like one of the things that prevented teams from racking up that many points is just simply how long it took to get from one end of the field to the other in a sport with a running clock. But if you have people that are that freaking fast and they just break a big play, you could score in like a minute or two, where other teams might take 7, 8, 9 minutes of game time. And yeah, there's just a higher ceiling on Miami any given game because they are that explosive. So they are definitely one of my teams that I enjoy watching, even if I think all of the points about them kind of being paper tigers is true. Sometimes you watch a sport just to have fun, just to see something cool happen. And they're
I have no idea what you're talking about with that. All right, so the Houston Texans, they're Texans from Houston, I've heard.
Yes, famously, the Texans are people from Texans, and Houston is their team.
All right, so they had a surprising year last year.
They did. They drafted a quarterback in the first round, and he was good. And then their team was good.
A rookie quarterback.
And not just good, historically good for a rookie in a lot of categories.
Yes.
Right. Rookies usually take a couple years to grow into the role, to learn what they're doing. But the Texans' rookie quarterback, C.J. Stroud, and some of their other rookie position players around him were shockingly good. And they made it all the way to the playoffs. The second round of the playoffs, right?
Oh, man, I did not pay attention to their playoff run. That sounds good to me.
Didn't they lose in the wild card round to the Cleveland Browns?
Did they?
I'm going to check.
I believe that was a thing.
I'm looking it up.
I'm looking it up too. No. Houston beat Cleveland 45-14. Get wrecked, Cleveland. And then they lost to Baltimore 34-10.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, so they are.
Yeah, so there you go. So they made it to the second round of the playoffs with a very green team, which was surprising, and it won their quarterback the Rookie of the Year award. So everyone is expecting a lot from them this season.
That is true. Yeah, they have a good amount of receiving talent this year. Their quarterback is a year older and did not get waxed last year, so hopefully he will be slightly better. They brought in an experienced running back, Joe Mixon from the Bengals. to replace their kind of young running back who they didn't trust as much. So Houston should be a fun team. Their defense still seems like it might be doo-doo, but their offense, at the very least, should be entertaining.
And I have this as by far the best team in the AFC South. The Colts are too much of an unknown to me, and Jacksonville, I have to believe they'll start out impressive and then they'll just collapse in the second half of the season.
We should clarify that is the Indianapolis Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Jaguars. Yeah, and the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee Titans might be an interesting team just because they got a lot of deep threats now, and their quarterback loves throwing the ball far. So that could be fun. He also likes mayonnaise a lot.
Yeah, he does.
Will Levis. Did either of you
Yes,
did you attempt to order his Eau de Mayonnaise cologne?
No, I don't wear cologne, but I
I'm not
did.
that brave.
Yes,
Okay.
the young quarterback for, and actually also in the second year, right? Will Levis.
I think he's a
Correct.
second-year guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
For the Tennessee Titans, who came in last in their division last year. He has a thing with mayonnaise. He just put out a cologne, that's mayo themed.
Yeah, he puts mayonnaise in his coffee.
Yeah, interesting characters in sports.
It's amazing what happens in the sport with the most head injuries. What happens? Lots of personality quirks.
Yeah, who would have thought? So the Titans might do something interesting, but you seem to be dismissing the Colts pretty readily, Tyler. I thought their new young quarterback, Anthony Richardson, is the messiah.
I think he's promising. He shows a lot of the physical talent um, that you want to see in a young quarterback. But I just don't think, from a roster standpoint, the Indianapolis Colts are ready to compete for this division. I think they're still another year, possibly two out.
I think he's Anthony Richardson might be a better fantasy football quarterback than actual quarterback. It's unclear if he can throw the ball accurately, which is bad because his job's to throw the ball.
Because he was also injured very early
Yes.
last season as well.
But he is maybe right now the best
So-
athlete playing quarterback. He's one of the fastest and biggest people playing quarterback. So they will be very interesting. I bet they will have some very fun games here and there as long as he stays upright. But it's pretty hard to tell how good they're going to really be.
There's a lot of question marks in AFC South.
Yeah, it's a division that's famously been bad for a good long while.
All right, so from the AFC, to sum it up, Tyler, it seems like the potential threats to the Chiefs once they get to the playoffs are anyone from the AFC North,
Except the Browns.
the Bills, except the Browns,
In Pittsburgh.
and we'll get to Pittsburgh later. The Bills, the Dolphins, the Jets. If Aaron Rodgers is even half the man he used to be,
I just want to have this recorded. I do not think that Aaron Rodgers will be very good coming off of an Achilles tear at like 40 years old. And the Jets are maybe one of the most self-defeating franchises in the NFL. So I'm just going to assume they're going to do something that embarrasses themselves and the people who like them. So I just want that to be clear. I do not believe in the Jets.
Yeah.
I was going to get to it later, but that is one of the storylines in this year is what happens with the Jets.
It's the storyline every year. They always do this. How many different old beat-up NFC North quarterbacks are they going to hire to replace their young quarterbacks? This is their playbook.
I mean, they just hire the whatever old guy the Packers have, right?
Yeah.
It's like the old Packers like retirement home at this point.
Basically, the New York Jets are the farm upstate for Packers quarterbacks. You know, they have a lot of room to run around up there. They're going to be really happy. Don't worry, honey. Aaron Rodgers is going to be okay. Brett Favre's going to have a lot of room to run. And then they end up injured because they're old.
They're old and their ligaments are turning to dust.
So should we turn our attention to the NFC?
Yeah, we might as well. So Tyler, who could possibly be threatening from the NFC?
So I'm going to go right back to the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, you look at what this team did in the regular season, and it's hard to not be impressed with what they did. Solid defense, what their philosophy is on offense, kind of like unlike Bills, Chiefs, and Baltimore. They have a quarterback who is he's kind of in that range of like average to good. I wouldn't say he's elite, but he has some freakishly good athletes around him. They have Christian McCaffrey at running back. They have a really good tight end whose
George
name I'm
Kittle.
currently blanking on. George Kittle, thank you. And they have a pretty reliable wide receiving core. Um, I like San Francisco to run it back in the NFC. In my opinion, there's very few teams that can consistently challenge the San Francisco
So
49ers.
Also, to clarify, McCaffrey is considered the best running back in the league
yes,
right now,
yes,
correct?
he is currently. So what I would say
And
about the San Francisco 49ers, one, we haven't spoken too much about defenses, but the 49ers are one of the best defenses in the league. They are also one of the better offenses. And the reason why that is because their quarterback was literally picked last in the NFL draft, I believe 3 years ago now.
Mr. Irrelevant.
Mr. Irrelevant, Brock
Yep.
Purdy. Because he is Mr. Irrelevant, his contract runs 4 years and is at the lowest amount possible for a drafted player. So they took all that money they are not paying their quarterback, and they are paying it to their wide receivers, running backs, and defensive players. So they have the most stacked roster outside of quarterback of any team. And that has kind of allowed them to field a really balanced team. And though their quarterback, I would agree, he's like more average to slightly above or slightly below, depending on the day and who he's throwing to and how it works out. But one thing that he's got going for him is his receivers and running backs. They're kind of the yak boys, the yards after catch boys. He dumps the ball off to them at like 2 or 3 yards, and then they just break tackles. And that's kind of the dominant skill of all of his receivers. And everyone who catches is an above average player with the ball on the 49ers. And so Brock Purdy doesn't need to throw the ball super far. He doesn't need to be incredibly accurate. He just kind of needs to get the ball to them on time in the right place, and they will do the rest. And that's kind of what the 49ers are predicated on, is getting the ball to those playmakers early and then, make do. So I think they're going to be good. I think they've definitely got a really good shot of making it to the Super Bowl again. They also have one of the best coaches in the league. Son of Shanahan is quite good.
Yes, the son of Shanahan. And they're also in the NFC West,
They are.
correct?
Yep.
So is there anyone else in the NFC West who might be notable for, I don't know, winning a Super Bowl in the last 5 years?
The Los Angeles Rams, is that who you mean? Perhaps?
It would have to be the LA Rams because I not taking Seattle or Arizona seriously.
Yes, the Seattle Seahawks and Arizona Cardinals exist.
Hey, the
That's
Seahawks
about
are
it.
fine. They're a fine football team. They
They're
are
mid.
but they're,
They are the definition of mid.
they
They have Gino
they
Smith as
do.
quarterback.
His name's spelled wrong. That's not the right way you spell Gino in my book. But yeah, I would say that the Seahawks are kind of assembled in a similar way to the 49ers, except their mediocre quarterbacks paid too much. Like they have a lot of good skill position players, but just not as good as the 49ers, and their defense isn't as good.
Well,
My
thank goodness you had something to say about the Seahawks, because I have literally nothing to say
I
about
mean,
the
DK,
Seahawks.
like their receiving core is really good. Metcalf is really good. Tyler Lockett's still okay. Jackson Smith and Jigba is good. And Kenneth Walker III is also good. But the thing is, their defense isn't exceptional, and the 49ers is. And the 49ers also have a coaching edge. So back to the Rams, which I think who we were trying to hit on. It's kind of interesting. Sean McVay and Shanahan. What? Kyle Shanahan? Kyle, right? I always mix him up with his dad,
Kyle.
Mike Shanahan. Kyle and Sean McVay, so the coach of the 49ers and the coach of the Rams, they both coached at the same time under, I believe, Kyle's dad, Mike Shanahan. So they have very similar offensive schemes. So it's kind of funny that those two teams have kind of been trading off back and forth, who goes further in the playoffs, basically running the same offense or very close to the same offense. Little rivalry. It's fun.
The one thing that concerns me about the LA Rams is you never know what you're going to get out of quarterback Matthew Stafford. If you look at him on his good years, he looks like an elite level talent. If you look at him during his bad years, he looks like a bottom half, bottom two-thirds quarterback.
Yeah, he's a risk taker.
Um,
And sometimes the risks don't pay off. This is kind of the thing. He's got
he-
that Eli Manning syndrome. He'll just throw a ball up and just say, go get it. And sometimes the player does, and it looks cool as hell. And sometimes they don't, and his team loses badly.
yeah. So you just never know with Matthew Stafford. Um, watch him for the first 4 weeks. If he looks good, then yeah, I put LA in that conversation. If he looks awful, then I think you move on to new and better things.
Yeah, and he's also got quite an injury history by this point, so there's no guarantee he even finishes the season. I hope he does, but he's getting up there in age.
Yeah.
What do y'all think of the Eagles?
The
birds, the dirty birds.
All right. So no. The Dirty
know.
Birds are something different.
All right, they're very
All right.
clean
So
birds.
Tyler, the NFC East. How fraudulent is the entirety of the NFC East?
I mean, they have the Giants in there, so it's hard.
They are properly rated.
Find the. I mean, somebody has to win that division, and in my mind, it's either.
Wait, who? First off, who is in that division?
Okay, so the NFC East is made up of the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Washington Commanders,
The
and
Washington Football Team.
the New York Giants.
So we've got a
Out of
chance.
those 4 teams, it's nothing's impossible, just highly improbable.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no. Giants and Commanders. I think both those teams are going to finish in the bottom half of the league. So really, it's pick your poison when it comes to the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys have that reputation of being a really good regular season team. They're kind of like the Miami Dolphins. They like to beat up on a lot of weaker competition. I think their schedule is a little bit harder this season. And then that leaves you with the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a team that started out the season really hot last year and then dropped their last 6 games. Or no, sorry, they lost like 5 of their last 6 games.
And then they got richly humiliated in the postseason.
Yes, by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I believe.
Yeah, it was 32-9. I have it in front of me right now.
Yeah. And it was just a historic collapse on defense. I guess if I had to choose, I would lean Philly. What happened to their defense last year? Uh, I just wouldn't count on it again.
They got a bunch of
They
injuries,
have
right?
Jalen, yeah, like devastatingly so. They still have Jalen Hurts, kind of. The market is still out on him. He's one of those quarterbacks we see a lot of good. We've also seen some bad. But out of that division, I'm leaning towards the Eagles. Gino, Adam, can you convince me otherwise?
Go Birds.
I hate Dallas more than any other team, so I'd be of those two options. I think the Eagles. Like the thing with Dallas is that their pass rush is really good, but their overall defense is not so good, or not as good, I should say. Like their pass rush masks some weakness in their secondary. So if they're playing a team with a bad offensive line, they win, like they just destroy that team because they just keep sacking the quarterback over and over and over again, or like making them make bad throws. But if you can protect your quarterback against Dallas, you usually can find open receivers. So their outcomes swing really wildly based on that. Like when they play against teams with bad offensive lines, they just eat them alive. And then when they play teams with good offensive lines, it's close games and they tend to lose those because Dak Prescott's not that good of a quarterback. He's like fine. He's like A-okay, just like an average quarterback.
So, Gino, let me ask you this: in terms of ranking, where do you put Dak Prescott currently?
Like over out of all the quarterbacks in the NFL, you mean?
Yeah.
Probably in the teens, I'd guess. Like it's probably the low, like
Yeah.
outside the top 10, but probably 15, somewhere between 10 and 15, I'd guess, somewhere in that range. Like
So is he like a solid 6.5 out of
something like
10,
that.
or like a
Like I
7.5 out
don't
of
think he's
10?
bad,
Okay.
and you have to keep in mind like every year there's like 5 to 7 rookies or something. 3 to 7 rookies who we don't know if they're any good at all. There's a handful of people
Okay.
who don't belong starting at quarterback, who shouldn't be starting at quarterback, and then there's the solid people.
Oh,
We
we will get
will.
to that
So
later.
I just think that by being a solid quarterback who has held a job down for, it's like a manager of a restaurant that isn't doing so hot. Like if you've held that job down for a couple of months, you're doing something right, you know? Like something's going okay if you haven't
Hmm.
gotten fired yet. I think he's
Yeah.
firmly in that range. Like he's not amazing. I think he will give you about as much as your roster around him will give you. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, depending on the year.
Sometime I want you to go on a rant about Jerry Jones, but
He's not a
not
nice
today.
man, and he runs his team poorly.
I'm sure you have more to say
Not
about
a
him
nice
than
man.
that.
He should be dead, but
But
it's okay.
all right. So I know we
All
don't
right.
want to talk about this next conference or
Well, no,
division,
no.
but
But well, no. Let's save that for last. Let's next talk about the only conference in NFC that matters,
Okay.
the
Oh,
NFC
okay.
North.
Yep.
okay.
I mean, go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead, Tyler. Take it away.
So for me, I'm torn between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. I I am really impressed with how Detroit has rebuild their franchise around Coach Campbell. He's completely changed the identity of that organization. For the longest time, Detroit was considered a bottom feeder, and now here they are winning their division last year.
And they made it to the NFC Championship to lose barely to the Niners.
Yep. So you have a very competitive roster, and unlike most teams, you have a head coach that I feel like is an actual asset to the team. He's like in that same tier as Mike Tomlin or Mike Vrabel, where he's just going to get the most out of his players, and his players are going to jump through walls for that man. But on the other hand, you have Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur in the Green Bay Packers. Going into the season, Green Bay didn't have a whole lot of expectations for them.
Going to last season, you mean?
Yes, going in the last season, the attitude was, we'll see what we have with Jordan Love, and then they blow out Dallas in the wild card round, which
No,
was amazing.
we're
Right.
trying to list.
So that means they
Wait,
brought.
wait, wait. We're trying to list impressive things. Blowing out Dallas and Dallas is pretty normal. That's just what they do. That's what
For
happens.
Green Bay, it
That's what
is.
happens to Dallas and
for,
Dallas.
for Green Bay. So
But
Green Bay, the storied Cheeseheads. The year after they ejected old man Aaron Rodgers, they have their new young guy who they've had on the back burner for a bit,
Mhm.
Jordan Love, and he takes them into the playoffs his first year.
Yep.
And not only that, takes them to the second round of the playoffs. So a similar storyline for the Texans almost.
Yeah. Yeah, except Jordan Love was kind of riding the bench for a year or two behind Aaron Rodgers, getting ready just in his Rocky training montage, and then they gave him the keys to the offense. And he's a player that I find he's a real Packers-y quarterback. He likes to throw it far, and sometimes it works out, and sometimes it doesn't. He had some really head-scratching interceptions, but his receiving core is really good, and they're a pretty balanced team. Their defense is okay as well. So I think the Packers they have a chance definitely to make the playoffs. I think between the two, I'd probably take Detroit, just because I think Detroit's skill position players are a little bit better potentially. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta are both pretty excellent. Their two-headed monster at running back is also quite good, and their defense is solid. So I think Detroit's probably just like a half step above Green Bay between the two, but I think they both should be playoff teams.
And also the Lions, as much of a Bears fan as
You've
I've
always
always
been.
been, I will say the Lions probably have the best kicker in the league, in my opinion,
Really?
coming into this year. Jake Bates, the UFL MVP from this past spring.
Was he the MVP as a
gosh.
kicker?
Yes, that's how good he is. Regularly makes 60+ yard kicks.
Okay.
So very much looking forward to the field goals for the Lions this year. All right, so but Tyler, who else is in the NFC North?
So also in the NFC North, we have the Minnesota Vikings, who got a little bit of bad news here in the preseason. Their rookie quarterback J.J. McCarthy, who had a shot to win the starting job, has suffered a season-ending injury, and we're not going to see him until 2025 now. Minnesota, I think they're uh, high end. They're going to be mid. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the 5 to 6 win range if everything goes poorly.
Yeah, their quarterback getting injured before they even took the field in the regular season's pretty bad break, and now they're stuck with Sam Darnold. So that's a
Yeah.
problem. There's a human being named Sam Darnold. Come on, you can't believe in him. No one ever has.
Not No. I think was it 4 or 5 other NFL teams have lost faith
Yeah,
in him.
like the number one thing to do with Sam Darnold is to give up on him. That's what you do.
Yes. I mean,
Sam Darnold. Come on.
All right,
but
Tyler. So who is the fourth team in the NFC North, Tyler?
Yeah,
you
your
already talked
Bears.
about
You're
it. You
famously the
mentioned
Bears. You've
Chicago Bears.
enjoyed.
The Chicago
You've enjoyed since birth.
Bears.
Tell me about your team.
Yes.
You're famously.
Yes, my famous team, the Chicago Bears, they had a rough time last season because they ruined their first round pick quarterback in his sophomore year, then traded him out, and then now they have a new first round pick quarterback, Caleb Williams, rookie, going to start because there's no one else there to start. It's a young team. It's a team that's been rebuilding. They are ready to go. This is going to be the year. Go Bears! They're going to make it to the playoffs in the wild card round, and they're going to have a miraculous run all the way to the Super Bowl, baby.
Just a question.
I think
Quick cue here.
Yes.
Did they make their offensive line any better? Because they got better wide receivers. They're pretty stacked on offense. Is their offensive line any good? Because last year, what happened was Justin Fields, their starting quarterback, was running for his life constantly. And thankfully, he was very good at running, so that helped him. But he was seeing ghosts constantly. Better receivers means maybe people will be open, but if Caleb Williams is under constant assault, I don't know how he's going to do any better.
They have improved their O line, at least according to Chicago sports media. So that's why this year's the year.
Okay, just making sure.
For the
because that was their undoing. That's what made it. Well, that and Justin Fields maybe not being so good. that kind of undid them last year. Okay, we'll see.
And to be fair to the Bears O-line, Justin Field, I feel like he has a tendency to want to run the ball, not throw the ball. This isn't an X's and O podcast, but if you watch him play, his wide receivers do get open for him. He just, for whatever reason, is reluctant to throw the ball. Like if he has a 5 or 6 yard open receiver, I've seen him tuck the ball, run around a bit, and get that same amount of yardage. He just had to stand on his head to get it.
Yeah, he's Justin Fields, elite fantasy quarterback. Probably not a good real quarterback.
Yes.
So I
Well
think
said.
that takes us to the NFC South, right? A division someone must legally win.
Unfortunately.
Yes. So someone must win the NFC South against their
Someone
will.
must get sent to the playoffs.
So yes. Hey, you know what? Last year, Tampa, they made it to the second round after ritually humiliating the Eagles.
Yeah, that happens sometimes.
So there was that.
Football's a wild time, y'all. Unpredictable things happen all the time. But the NFC South, boy, who do we think is going to win that lottery? Who's going to punch their ticket?
So I guess it's time to talk about the biggest story in the NFC South this year. Take it away,
Say
Tyler.
his name.
I don't want to
Okay.
talk about it.
So I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that the team that wins the NFC South this year is going to be none other than the New Orleans Saints.
Okay, well that's crazy talk. Like, who's it actually? Come on.
Actually, it's New Orleans Saints.
Make your argument.
Like,
I know.
no
Make
joke.
your argument. Why do you think so?
So, so if I look at their performance back in the year of our Lord 2023, they finished the season with a 9-8 record. However, I have a couple of spreadsheets tucked away in the bowels of the internet that tell me this team actually performed more like a 11-6 team. They just came out on the wrong side of variance, and you can call it luck, you can call it bad breaks, you can call it whatever you want. I don't love the pick, but if they are able to just duplicate what they did in 2023, I think you see this team winning the division just with a slightly better record. I'm not impressed with the Kirk Cousins to Atlanta,
You don't like a 30-something-year-old?
Carolina
That's the
Panthers.
You don't
Atlanta
like a
Falcons.
30-something-year-old quarterback coming off of an ACL tear? No, sorry, Achilles tear. That's not what you want to base your team around. A quarterback who was never that good.
He was average at best, and I just don't think he's what Atlanta needs at the moment. Carolina, I don't even want to go there. And
That's the Carolina Panthers. Last year they drafted the number 1 quarterback,
and
then put him behind a fake O line.
a fake team.
A fake O line with fake receivers and a fake running in defense. And the Panthers were the worst team in the league last year.
The fakest. Just everything about the Panthers last year.
Yes.
It was Washington General stuff. It was a team being sent out to lose. And now they've got receivers this year. So can I make an argument for the Panthers? I don't know that they'll be good. I don't know that they'll be good. Look, the division's very bad, right? It's a bad division. One of these teams has to win, right?
I mean,
they by law, one of them must go to the playoffs. The Panthers did draft a wide receiver in the first round. They did sign Deontay Johnson off of the Steelers. So they have now maybe 1.5, perhaps 2 real wide receivers on their team. And now maybe They also picked a first round or second round running back. They picked a running back highly. Like they should have more offensive weapons for Bryce Young. So maybe he can actually do something. Now, if he's the problem, they're going to be screwed.
So some jargon there. Weapons are what you call. That's not a mean thing to call someone in Scotland. In this case, that is what you call running backs and receivers and tight ends. Basically, anyone that the quarterback could give
Yes.
the ball to.
Yes, I
are
think
his
he now
weapons.
has some players who, if he gave them the ball, could do something with it, which last year he did not have. Miles Sanders was his starting running back.
But are you saying they're a candidate to win the
I
division?
think that all four of these teams are a candidate to win the division because the division is bad and someone must win it. I think
Really?
All right, so look,
You think Carolina Panthers, like, regardless of how bad that division is, to me, it's between the Saints
and
and
the
the
Bucks.
Tampa Bay
Those are the obvious two.
Buccaneers. And
all right, now look,
yeah, okay.
look. Yes, Kirk Cousins is older than dirt. Yes, he's injured and his bones are turning into dust as we speak. But that's why the Falcons drafted, like, what was it, number 5 pick or what quarterback? Michael Penix Jr. Falcons fans are excited about him. Everyone expects for him to start at some point this year.
Which is cool because they gave Kirk Cousins like a 4-year deal or something ridiculous.
But they're also barely paying Kirk Cousins too because the Vikings. So people are excited about Penix.
They are. Look, the
So
Falcons quarterback situation was maybe one of the worst in the NFL last year. Desmond Ridder, who was their starter for a
yes.
considerable amount of time, just got cut from the Cardinals. Like he was not good enough to be the backup quarterback on another team, and he was starting for them. So I mean, just moving to a person who can professionally play quarterback will be a huge upgrade there. I don't believe in Kirk. I don't believe in Kirk Cousins. I never have. Like they might put up some points, but I don't know. I can't stop not believing in that man.
That's fair. Now, who actually did win the division last year, and who has won the division
The
consistently the
Bucks.
last
The
few
Bucks.
years?
They have talent. They have
You mentioned
talent.
them before.
Yeah.
That's
But
Tampa
Baker
Bay.
Mayfield.
With Baker Mayfield at quarterback, they made it to the second round of the playoffs last year to lose to the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, they're
They have they won the Super Bowl with Tom Brady and Tom Brady's last year. Just like which he did as a goof.
well.
And that was in 2021. They have a quarterback, Baker Mayfield, who wasn't supposed to be worth very much, but he's actually doing pretty well.
Yeah,
There's a decent enough team
there's
there.
the bones of a good team. I want to live in a world where Bryce Young's good and Carolina's not awful. I just want to live in that world. It might just be hope. I know it's probably hope, but the Bucks should probably win this division. I think they would probably be the favorites, though. I think the Saints, the Falcons, and the Bucks are all kind of one of those teams is going to win some more divisional games, and then they're going to be the team that makes the playoffs probably.
Yeah. But mind you, last year, the only reason why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won that division is because they had a tiebreaker over the Saints. They had the exact same record, but the dice barely fell in Tampa Bay's favor. And like since the Tom Brady Super Bowl, in my opinion, this roster just kind of keeps getting weaker and weaker.
Yeah, they really sold out to have a
Like I
good
don't,
roster for Tom Brady, and now it's just kind of languishing.
yeah, like it wouldn't surprise me if Atlanta somehow supplanted them as the number 2 in this division.
Yeah, we'll see. I think that is a division that I think is just going to be a lot of coin tosses, and someone's going to win it, but they might win it at 9-8. You
9
know,
and 8.
and you win the
Yeah.
division.
So I'm the Saints.
They're all gonna go 9-8, baby.
So just for the record, I'm the Saints. Gino is the Bucks, and Adam is the Atlanta Falcons.
Yes.
Oh boy, it's going to be fun coming back and re-listening to this in December
Yeah.
or
It'll be
January.
anything. All right, so for the NFC, we have the Niners, the Lions, the Packers, maybe the Rams. as
Yep.
contenders? Am I missing
As
anyone?
actual contenders, the
Eagles?
Eagles.
As actual contenders, the Eagles.
They won
Okay.
a Super Bowl
You insist.
recently.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess.
I can't say
No.
Dallas.
We don't
No,
have
we
to.
don't have to. We're
No
not
one's
obligated.
paying us. We're not ESPN. We don't have to say Dallas every time.
All right, so those are the contenders. It's there isn't that much standing in the way of the Chiefs going back to the Super Bowl, sadly. But we can hope, and we can root for anyone
Well,
who's
it's
playing against
football.
them.
The number one thing standing against them is the vicious ravages of time and human frailty. And that happens.
Yes.
So we'll see if they make it to the Super Bowl. I don't see a team that's better than them, but who knows if they are the same team come playoff time.
Yeah.
True. So that's the main storyline. Some other storylines this year. I'm now changing segments.
Excellent.
By the way, that was a transition.
Calling attention
Well
to the
done.
transition makes it
Thank
smoother.
you. So the other big storyline are all these rookie quarterbacks. There were a lot of them in the offseason. Like historically, a lot of them.
Sure are.
Right? Or am I missing something?
No, it's how many were drafted this year? Like 5?
It's like
a
7?
lot that are actually going to see play.
And a lot of them are going to start a game this year. So number 1, you have Caleb Williams to the Bears. He's going to take them all the way this year. You also have I forget the order after him. It's Jaden. Is it Jaden Daniels? The next one.
Draft order?
So there were 6 first-round quarterbacks taken.
Yeah. 6 first round, and then like a second round was Rattler, right?
I am looking this up, but we can list them. So it's
Anyone?
Caleb Williams for the Bears.
Yeah.
Crickets.
He's going to be starting. Then we have what's his name
He's
for
gonna be
the Commanders? Jaden Daniels for the
Jaden
Commanders.
Daniels.
Jaden Daniels, and he's starting.
Yep. You have Drake May for the New England Patriots, who will not be starting, but will be starting before too long.
But there's a reason for that. Do we want to touch on the reason for that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So the starting quarterback for your 2024 New England Patriots will be longtime NFL journeyman, the vulnerable Jacoby Brissett. So, for those of you who are new, a journeyman quarterback is a quarterback who is not good enough to earn a long-term franchise deal, making 40 to 50 million dollars a year, but he's good enough to come in and not automatically lose you games. In Jacoby Brissett's case, he has a fairly substantial injury history. And I believe one of the headlines right now is he has a shoulder injury. Adam, Gino, would you like to comment on that?
Wait. So Brissett's already injured, but like he's still starting the first game, right?
I think he has a mild injury.
Entirely possible. I mean, the reason Jacoby Brissett is there is because the offensive line in New England is doo-doo poop. And it's so bad that they think that if they throw out their rookie QB, he will just die. And so instead of throwing him out, they are throwing Jacoby Brissett out there to get turned into a Jacoby Brisket.
So basically the idea is that he's going to be indigent.
Yes,
at
that
some
is the
point.
problem, is that he is going to be running for his life. Their offense is very bad, and their line is bad specifically. So New England is kind of just trying to let this year happen to Jacoby Brissett so that Drake May can have a nice, safe life learning the NFL game without dying.
So that their shiny new young rookie quarterback doesn't get like his back broken like a Batman against
But
Bane.
at some point, the pressures of the NFL season might come, and they might throw him out there because the coach
certainly.
doesn't want to get fired, and I'm sure that the GM doesn't want to get fired.
So Drake May isn't supposed to see much action this season, but he's almost
Yes.
certainly going to.
Then after him, it was Michael Penix Jr., who we talked about for Atlanta. Then J.J.
about for
McCarthy, who we
Atlanta.
talked to, he's behind Sam Darnold on the Minnesota Vikings currently. He could
Well, he's injured, so he was supposed to. He probably was going to start for the Vikings, but then he took an
Yep,
arrow
so
to the knee.
he's out. Then Bo Nix will be starting for the Denver Broncos. We'll see if he's any good. I think those are the ones who are slated to start this year at some point, or like were at some point slated to
Yes,
start.
yes, and there's a seventh, second round guy. I think Spencer Rattler was drafted by the Saints as their backup. So this might be the last we ever hear.
Yeah,
We'll see.
yeah.
But that's a lot of quarterbacks, rookies to get drafted, and a lot of rookies to start the first year.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. There's quarterback tends to be a bit of a carousel position where, you're the new guy, everyone really believes in you. Oh, you're going to be the next thing, and then you know, you aren't that for a couple of games in a row, and then you're out of the league. Or you're holding a
Yes,
clipboard. And Spencer Rattler was a 5th round pick for the New Orleans Saints.
5th round.
Yep.
Ooh, wow. Okay, never mind then.
And technically, the New York
Uh,
Jets selected Jordan Travis in the 5th round also.
Oh, okay. Wait, did Travis make the cut as QB2 or 3 for them?
I have no idea. That I don't know. I am not
okay.
monitoring the Jets depth chart enough to tell you that. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, I think I did see that the Jets only have 2 QB positions in their roster, which I think is very funny, considering last year when they went through 4 quarterbacks.
Look.
They have Tyrod Taylor
They do.
as a backup.
Okay, because I only saw QB1 and 2 on their chart, but I might be wrong about something.
When you push all in,
Well, the 53-man.
go ahead. Oh no, all I was
go
going to
ahead,
say
Gino.
is when you push all in, why bother hedging? Right? Like if Aaron Rodgers gets hurt, the Jets are screwed. It doesn't matter who their backup is. They are going to be equally screwed. So, at that point, why invest that much?
Like pretty much once your QB1 goes down, QB2 and 3 are just there to get you through the end of the season.
Yeah, I think the Eagles winning with Nick Foles is maybe the only time I can remember a backup quarterback actually winning a Super Bowl. Other than Tom
winning
Brady.
a Super Bowl.
Yeah. Winning a Super Bowl, Nick Foles. The only other backup QB I can think of is there was that one season Tom Brady took a grown man to the knee, and I think it was Matt Castle came in and he got them into the playoffs.
But Tom Brady originally was a backup quarterback. So his first Super Bowl win was a backup quarterback winning, but he turned out to be Tom Brady, so we kind of forget about that.
Yeah. And fun fact, when Bill Belichick put him in, Drew Bledsoe was regarded as like the best quarterback at the time.
Yep. Turned out his backup was better than him. Whoopsies.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the second big storyline of the year. Is all the rookies. We've talked about the old men, Aaron Rodgers and I'm already blanking on his name, Kirk Cousins, being sent to save failing teams. That's kind of I think that's the third storyline this year to look out for.
Sure. Yep. That'll be interesting.
Unless someone has a better third one.
I think those are good ones.
Then there's the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
Which I think will be the funniest storyline this year.
Tell me why.
Yes.
So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've been having quarterback issues. So in the offseason, they traded for 2 quarterbacks who have been starting on 2 other teams. Justin Fields from the Bears, we talked about him, and then Russell Wilson from the Denver Broncos. The Russell Wilson who was the quarterback for the Broncos in their upsetting season last season.
Hard to watch.
Though the hard to watch season last season, even though Wilson has a Super Bowl ring, right?
Yeah,
for the Seahawks.
Yep. Seahawks.
Yep.
Legion of Boom.
Yeah, but that was like 11 years ago, 10 or 11 years ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
It wasn't recent.
It wasn't recent, but he has a ring, and he was hard to watch in Denver. So the Steelers brought in both of those guys at the same time, and has spent the summer making them compete with each other for the job of QB1 as the starting quarterback. The older guy got it, so that means we're going to see Russell Wilson starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers with Justin Fields waiting on the sidelines to start at any moment.
Yep.
And the reason why you would want an experienced quarterback ready to go at any moment for Russell Wilson. Does anyone else want to explain this?
I mean, Russell Wilson's is not so good.
Russell,
As my nonna would say, he not a very good.
he's not very good, and also the reason why the Broncos let him go is he's had the aura around him for a while now that he's gonna get injured at any moment.
That and also
He hasn't been injured.
he's the type of dude who, when he's your best player and is good, you tolerate some of his quirks, let's say. But if he's not good anymore, you probably don't put up with his like weird messiah complex stuff that he's got going on and has had going on for a while.
He's a weird guy, and off on the field and off the field. He's a weird guy.
Yeah.
His play style has devolved into chaos in the last few years. A chaotic quarterback.
It was always chaotic, but it used to work out.
Yeah. So basically, his play style was run around, extend plays, and then just yeet the ball down the field and hope one of his wide receivers would come down with it.
And they used to.
And kind of the storyline in the later years of his regime in Seattle, the head coach could not stand that play style. In fact, they started running the ball more and more just to take the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands.
Yes, you do not want him to hold on to the ball for more than a couple of seconds.
Yeah, it's just a guy who extending plays with his legs was his thing, and he had a very strong arm. Now he's not as fast, so he can't extend plays as well as he used to, and his arm isn't as strong, so when he yeets the ball down the field, it is much more interceptable. He's not especially accurate anymore. Now, to be fair, the Broncos had one of the worst receiving cores in the league, so it wasn't like he was throwing to good receivers, but it's not like the Steelers have an amazing receiving core. Like, George Pickens is pretty good, but I don't see too many great pass catchers. So he might just be running for his life again, not really having a lot of guys open. But if you're going to have someone run for their life, why not have it be the person in their 20s who's better equipped for running for their life?
And then there's Justin Fields, who has experience running for his life with the Bears the last couple of years. Lots.
Mhm.
So you have a old weird guy who's gonna just do weird things, and then you have a traumatized young guy who's probably just gonna run for it every chance he gets.
Yeah. His natural instinct, I think, is to run the ball.
Yeah. So my personal rooting interest is for Russell Wilson to lose the job to Justin Fields for fantasy purposes. That's my agenda in this. I want another good running quarterback available in fantasy football. That's all. I don't think this team is going to be especially good, but Mike Tomlin does not allow his teams to be bad. So they'll probably break 500 somehow through sorcery and black magic and just gumption. But it's probably going to be defense that does it. And that usually is how it is.
Yes, the Steelers have a good defense. And their coach is famous for not allowing their winning record to go below half in the season, no matter what.
He ends up 500.
So it's a team that has never tanked.
Yep.
Yes, it's a team that has not tanked for quite a while, which means they don't get good draft picks, and so they never get better.
But they do not bottom out. They never bottom out.
They do not bottom out. They do not top off in the last 15 years or so. And now they have a very chaotic quarterback situation. So this is if you want a funny storyline, this is the team to watch.
And for our listeners, in week 2 of the regular season, you can watch the Pittsburgh Steelers play against the Denver Broncos. That's good narrative, folks. Revenge game for Russell Wilson.
Is that at Denver?
Revenge game for the Broncos? We'll see.
Is that at Denver?
It's at Denver.
I could go to that
yes.
game. That could be interesting to watch.
So are there any other storylines I missed for this upcoming season?
I mean, I think those are the big ones. I heard you might have a spreadsheet. You might have something.
Okay. All right, yeah. So now we're going to go to our main gimmick for this podcast: spreadsheets and numbers. That's right. No, You are not pausing this. You're not turning this podcast off. You're going to listen to this. I see you. You're going to listen to
Sit
this.
down.
Yes. So, Tyler, do you have some predictions using, let's say, mathematical formulae for this season?
Okay. So I actually tried to take my modeling slightly more serious than Adam, as I'm using like actual statistics from previous seasons. Those statistics are quite simply a team score and their opponent score. If I can go full math nerd, the famous Bill James baseball statistician made famous what's called Pythagorean wins. And basically, if you know the number of points a team's going to score versus what they're going to allow, that gives you a rough winning percentage, which you can translate into a win loss record. For the most part, my model is pretty uninteresting. I think it conveys a lot of the traditional thinking that's going on out in the market. One thing I did find interesting is going back to Gino's earlier argument about the Carolina Panthers. I have them improving this year. I'm seeing them going from like a 2-win team to like a 4-win
Woo!
team.
Twice as good.
So
Yeah, a 100% increase, you could say.
If we continue
yes.
this for 3 to 4 more years, we will go undefeated. It's just math.
Exactly. All right, no, so let's talk about methodology here. So what's the model using? Is it like a regression?
Yep, it's just a simple linear regression model.
Can
I know there are fancier kind of AI-driven models out there, but I don't know how to
can
do
you
any of that
Man,
explain
fuck
to
AI.
the
at the moment.
listeners, for those who
Uh,
are not mathematically inclined, what is a linear regression?
so imagine, if you would, a simple chart with an X and Y axis. And you then went ahead and you plotted out data points. And for the sake of visualization, let's say you had a bunch of data points going up and to the right. Now they're not in a perfect row, there is some variation. If you run a regression line, that line should go through all those points where it minimizes the error, and at that point, you now have a formula for a line. Recall high school math, y equals mx plus
Mm-hmm.
b. And now that you have this formula, you can take your inputs. In my case, it's your team score and your opponent score, and put that into the formula, and that will give you your output. So in this case, your independent variables are things like team score, opponent scores. You could use like interceptions, and that will give you your dependent variable, which in this case
And when you
is
say team
wins.
score, opponent
And the
score,
dependent variable.
team score and opponent score, are you meaning
Mhm.
literally the points scored by your team? Literally the points for, points against?
Yep. So my model takes every team's points for and against back to the 2022 season.
Okay. So, what teams have like the biggest difference between last year and this year in terms of up or down? Who overachieved, who underachieved, and what do you think's going to happen that way?
Or who will overachieve and who will
Well,
underachieve?
yeah. Well,
What could happen in the future, Tyler? What's the future?
who do you think? Who does your model say? People
Uh,
love listening to what models say.
Again, it's kind of it's to me it's the Saints again. This forward-looking model has them as a 10-7 team. Kind of my backward-looking statistics tell me in 2023 they should have been a 11-6 team. And let's be honest, if they win one or two more games, the narrative completely flips on the New Orleans
Hmm.
Saints. Let's see who
Are there any
else.
frauds? Has your
Um,
model detected any frauds?
uh,
And for the
I
listeners,
mean,
frauds are overrated teams.
so my model isn't real high on the New York Jets. It's having them going 5-12 again, which in my mind makes sense. Historically, the Jets have been really, really bad. And I have a hard time believing Aaron Rodgers is going to truly elevate this roster. One other thing I should note is everybody is kind of high on the Houston Texans right now. My model has them going 7-10, which I believe is below market expectations.
Okay.
So who does your model have at the top end?
So my model is kind of what it likes to do is push the bottom teams up and the top teams down. There isn't a team that has a record better than 12-5. Those teams are the 49ers, the Dallas Cowboys, the Bills, and the Ravens.
Okay. So a bunch of the teams we named earlier.
All right.
So overall, there's nothing too crazy, but that's kind of the point of the model. I guess it's just kind of a disclaimer. All models are wrong, but some models are useful. And by the end of the season, we're going to find out just how useful this model truly is.
I mean, if we want to talk about model quality, what's the p-value?
Uh, I should have known you were going to ask that. Did you mean the R squared?
Well, I was going to ask that second, but let's start the p-value. How significant is this model?
So my R squared right
No,
now is
p-value.
point.
Tell me about your
P-value.
P.
Give it to me.
Okay.
Show me your p-value.
Well, I have p-values for kind of each of my variables. Did you want all of them?
Do you
Or?
have one for your overall model as well? I think that should be in the descriptive somewhere.
Well, I'm doing it in
Look,
Excel,
if you
so
want
it
this
might be a
graduate
little bit
degree,
different
you need
than
to
what
show
you're
me the
used to.
p-value.
That is true.
Can I just do it in
No.
office hours?
Yeah, you do something else in office hours. Anyway, so your p-values are all significant.
Please tell
for
me they're
your,
significant. Please tell me
variables,
that the
right?
number is smaller than 0.05.
I would say 3 out of the 4 are
Okay.
significant.
Well, at the
The last
0.05. The other one is significant at 0.10, right?
Yeah. But right now, I just intellectually, I don't want to discredit it because then you're completely moving all forms of defensive metric out of the model. And I want to leave it in there just to hold up those teams that are more defensive in nature.
Okay, and I guess for context, the those less significant variable or variables are the EPAs on the offense and defense. So his scores for team one and team two, those are very significant in his model, and the EPAs are the less significant ones. Now, here's something I mean to ask. Let's assume for a second that I keep forgetting what EPA means.
Mm-hmm.
Could you explain it?
So, in American football terms, EPA stands for expected points added. Basically, it's a metric used to evaluate the impact of a play or a player on the scoring outcome of a game. And the nice thing about this is it weights like down in distance, but also puts it in context of uh, like yards to go and time that's left in the game. Let's say you have two plays and you have 3rd and 3 and 3rd and 8, and both plays you get 4 yards. On that first play, the 4 yards is enough to get you a new set of downs, where the second play only makes you less short. That first play is going to have a higher EPA value because it's more valuable. So basically, it's saying not all plays are the same. A hunt like a 50-yard pass is obviously worth more than a 10-yard run.
So,
Okay.
so you want a team to have a higher average EPA.
You want your offense to have a higher positive EPA, and you want your defense to have a really low negative EPA, right? Because in a game, one team's gain is another team's loss.
Mm-hmm. It's a seesaw.
All right, so that makes sense. And
Yeah.
all right, now tell me your R squared.
Okay, so the R squared for the model is 0.8268.
Hot. That's so hot. For the listeners, the R squared is the goodness of fit for a model. So as Tyler explained earlier, you have a bunch of dots on a graph, of your data points as a cloud. And then the line through the cloud is the model. So the closer that line is to the actual fit and direction and like shape of that data cloud, the higher your R squared is going to be. And a personal note, in academia, if you get R squared higher than like 0.5, they're going to tell you that you did it wrong because models aren't supposed to reflect reality, apparently. But this model does reflect reality. This is a very accurate model. Tyler's probably right about everything, if I'm going to be honest. So, what's your standard deviation?
I don't have standard deviation. I have standard error.
Yeah, give it to me.
1.281.
So hot.
So did
All right. So that's
no,
oh, go ahead,
that's
Gino.
very good modeling. Those are good error rates and fits. So hopefully this model should play out at least within bounds. Now, the actual swings of wins and losses in football are pretty, like, randomness is a big factor, obviously, and a simple like 50-50 game one way or another it makes models look silly, right? Like that's what undoes it. But at least this gives us kind of a good baseline, something to keep in mind based on trends, because you do want to make some predictions based on trends. They usually pan out. It's just that football's so random that, if you get it, you'll probably whiff on 2 or 3 teams just because of weird luck stuff, for sure. And we're not going to know which few teams at the outset. That's for sure.
Yeah, and that's what makes football fun. If football was completely predictable, God forbid, we would all just go watch soccer.
I don't want to watch a sport where games end 0-0.
No, you'll watch it where they end 3-0, like the Vikings Raiders game last year.
God.
That was a magical game, man. 16 punts. I was so happy.
I just love that a game ended 3-0 in the same season. A game ended 70-20. And
that's football.
And all of the teams involved were not very good. Just all of them on both sides. It just didn't matter.
And that was another game where it was 2 backup quarterbacks playing each other.
Mm-hmm.
That was a good time. All right, and to the listeners, Tyler's result tables will be available in the Discord later.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making that decision for you, Tyler. I'll make a post and pin it with our results for models.
Thanks.
Just to track it, because there's like there's going to be 20 weeks here. Personally, I'm going to forget everything. All right, so that's Tyler's model. I also have a model. Well, it's not a regression model. It's not really a model. It's a thing. It is a method that I created to predict. And this spreadsheet will also be shared in the Discord. So, without further ado, let me take the listeners through a magical and hopefully somewhat brief journey.
Oh boy.
I started with the question: how do you predict the win totals for all 32 teams in the NFL in the upcoming season? I was like, okay, well, you need to base it off of something, right? There's be some number you base it off of. And it got me thinking, what is it that we know going into the season? Right? So the season starts beginning of September. The last week of August, what do we know for sure that we can measure?
I don't know. What?
Or that we can use as a number? My answer to that are preseason power rankings.
Yes.
So power rankings are when a commentator or a publication or an influencer or some random jackass ranks the teams by what that person thinks is their ability level. From best to worst. Best is 1, worst is 32. So I'm taking the ESPN official preseason power rankings as of the last week of August, which they have done every year since 2016. So I've taken all of those, minus 2020, because 2020 was a weird year. And I have put that onto spreadsheet. So, that's 225 entries. You have 32 times 7, roughly, something like that. I then found the game results for all the regular season games in those 7 seasons. So that's 2016 to 2023 minus 2020. And I took those game results. I attached the preseason power rankings of the teams on either end of both those games, and recorded who the winner was. And I took the difference in the rankings. So that means if you have if the away team is ranked 10th in the preseason rankings, and they're playing the team who is ranked first, then that makes the rank difference -9.
Okay.
And so do that for all 1,840 games.
Yes. Then what do you get?
So you do that, then you do some analysis. You make a list of the team rank differentials. So that's from positive 31 to negative 31. Those are all possible differences. And that could be in rankings in a single game. And then you find the win percentage associated with each differential. So that means when for example, when the rank difference between the away team and home team is positive 7. So that would be if the away team is 7 ranks higher than the home team. Then that means over that 7 season period, the win percentage is 54% for the away team.
So basically, you've taken how positive, if in those preseason rankings, when there are matchups between teams with gaps in their rankings, you've taken the win and loss results across 7 years and said, okay, if there's a gap of this much between these teams' preseason rankings, how does that tend to go for the teams? Who tends to win?
Yes.
Who tends to lose?
Yes. So then I took the preseason power rankings for this year from ESPN.com. So you have Chiefs at number 1, Panthers at 32. Like the Bills are at 7. It's a whole thing. I took that, and then I took the upcoming regular season schedule, which is all 273 games or 272 games. And I attached the rankings of each teams, in all those games, got the difference, and then I was able to use that to get the odds of the away and home teams winning that game based on the historical analysis. So first game of the season are the Baltimore Ravens at the Kansas City Chiefs. Because their rank difference is -1, that means the Ravens have a 40% chance to win, and the Chiefs have a 60% chance to win. In my estimation, based off of the data.
So looking at this chart, one of my favorite things here is that some of these numbers do not seem to be as intuitive as you'd think. Like the Cardinals and Bills It's the 29th ranked team against the 7th, which is a negative 22 difference, but the odds are still 40-60, the same as 1 and 2, because -1, I'm guessing that big gaps like that don't happen that often, and big gaps like one, or small gaps like 1 versus 2 don't happen that often. So you got some quirks in there.
Well, let's see here. Yeah, it's a little bit quirky, you know. So yeah, the -22 happens like it's happened like 21 times in 7 years. The -1 has happened like 62 times
Okay. And
in
it
7
still
years.
worked out to be the
Yeah,
exact same odds. That's awesome.
yeah.
It's-
It's you know, because it's
Yeah, it's
football.
science.
You know.
This is science right here.
Yeah, it's
If
science.
you're -11,
It's a
it's a
science.
30-70, but if you're a -22, it's actually a 40-60. Or 21, yeah, -22, it's a 40-60.
Exactly.
Exactly. So what do we got?
So then I use these
Yes.
odds. Well, I use these odds to do 3 different
Mhm.
models. The first model is works off of just a simple assumption that if a team has greater than 50% odds to win, then they win. It's the most basic, straightforward model you could have.
Mhm.
Second model is the second most straightforward model you could have, where I reverse the 40 to 50 and 50 to 60% chance ranges. So that has it, if a team has 0 to 30% chance to win, they lose. If they have 40 to 50, they win. They have 50 to 60, they lose. And 60 to 100, they win. So I kind of swapped like those coin flip games. And then the third, I did an expected value, which is I just took all of the odds for a team across the season as decimal values. So that's like 60% goes to 0.6, 33% goes to 0.33, and so on.
Mhm.
So for all 17 games for each team, I added together those decimals. So if a team has a 33% chance to win a game, I count that as them winning 0.33 of a game, and that's the expected value of that game. So I added that up for all the teams as a third model. Well, as a third way to do it. So then I took the higher and lower results for model 1 and 2 as the upper and lower bounds for each team, and the expected value as the expected
Mhm.
value. And that got me to my predictions. So, for example, this model has the Kansas City Chiefs with a floor of 10 wins, a ceiling of 16 wins, and an expected value of 11.3.
I see. That checks out.
And then at the bottom, you have the New England Patriots, a floor of 1 win, a ceiling of 6 wins, and an expected value of 5.7.
Mm.
So the expected value here also tends to compress the predictions, like with Tyler's model. You know, the highest one is 11.3, and the bottom one is 5.7. So it has everyone winning at least 5 games, and no more than 11 games, which isn't going to happen. So it's more normalized. You know, it's pushing the predictions closer to the middle, which most models are going to do that, unless you really tinker with it. So I will also post this results table along with Tyler's results table in the Discord, which is why you should sign up for the Deep Listens Patreon to have access to the Discord. What stands out here is so my model has the Falcons
Mhm.
up real high.
It does.
It has them winning their division. They actually have they have the exact same expected value as the Bills at 9.4 wins,
That's odd.
which is probably underestimating the Bills and overestimating the Falcons.
That is not.
But it has their ceiling at 11.
Yeah, and it's got the Bucks at an 8.1 with a floor of 6 and a ceiling of 10. So we shall see. It might just be, it's based on preseason rankings. So if one of these was ranked higher or their opponents were ranked higher, it will play out in this chart.
Yes. Well, it's also on the. This is about how the preseason rankings end up reflecting in the season itself. So, the reason why the like negative 22 and the negative 1 both have the 40% is because maybe ESPN was wrong
Yeah.
about some
Yeah.
things.
No.
And so this
Never.
no.
It's not
Not possible.
possible.
And so this is hopefully capturing how wrong they are about some things as well as how right they are, ideally.
What I find interesting is some of these teams have the same floor and ceiling, like the Rams at 10 games.
Yeah. So yeah, I call it here. The Rams will win exactly 10 games.
That's a bold prediction.
Yeah. Also, you also have the Eagles at exactly 13 games, even though their expected value is 11. So expect them to be the biggest frauds this season. I don't put too much stock in the floors and ceilings, but I do put stock in the expected values.
Yeah, and they seem to align pretty much with what we
Fair, fair.
would think. I like that more than half of the league is projected at 500 or less, though. I like that because that is how football. Almost everyone ends up mashed into 9-8, 8-9 records a lot of the time.
Yes, and I'm considering anyone with above 9 to be playoff contenders.
It's literally every team we
So-
said: Rams, Packers, Bills, Falcons, Dolphins, Bengals, Texans, Lions, Niners, Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs.
Yeah, there you go. So when you chart that out, based off how the playoffs are structured, I've also picked division winners and wild card winners. So I guess for the listeners, the wild card, the playoffs, each conference, the AFC and NFC, they get 7 teams competing in the postseason. It's the 4 division winners plus the next 3 best teams based on wins. So for the division winners, I have the Ravens, Texans, Dolphins from the AFC East, Chiefs, of course, then the Lions, Falcons from the NFC South, the Birds from the NFC East, and the Niners. For the wild cards in the AFC, I have the Bengals and the Bills. For me, it's a toss-up whether the Bills or the Dolphins win the division. One of them wins and one of them goes in the wild card. And then and of course, the last place in the wild card is always a complete shrug. It's very hard to predict. It could go to the Cleveland Browns, the Los Angeles Chargers, or the New York Jets, just depending on who meets the promise and who collapses in the AFC. The most bold thing here is that I predict the Steelers to not go anywhere near the playoffs,
That checks out.
which is a very risky thing to say.
It is, yeah.
Wow.
They usually by hook or by crook find a way into the playoff picture.
The NFC wildcard situation is a bit more chaotic. The Packers and the Rams, I think, are going to get in there. It's just at what seed is up in the air. And then for the last place, it's going to come down to the Cowboys and the Bears.
We'll see.
That's why I predict the Bears getting that last playoff spot and then having a miraculous run to the Super Bowl, baby.
Yeah, well, we'll see if that plays out for you.
Supported by the
Lifelong
math.
Bears fan.
Yes, that's me. Finally, we can use this. We can use these rankings to find different categories of games to identify them in advance. So you can identify potentially very good games based off of when high-ranking teams play each other. So again, that first game of the season, the Ravens at the Chiefs, that is almost certainly going to be a very high-quality game to watch, like real football being played.
Yes, and that doesn't happen that often in an NFL season, unfortunately.
So yeah, I've identified several of those, which will be discussed in the Discord.
Yes,
along with
we have divided these into 3 categories, which are
the Kame Bowls. A Kame Bowl is again when top teams play each other, get good football, quality play. It's very technically at a high level.
Yes.
You then get Kuso Bowls, which are the Kusoge of football games. Those are when low-ranked teams play each other. These are filled with punts, interceptions, fumbles, bad decision-making, quarterbacks running around in a panic, receivers dropping the ball.
Yes.
all kinds of wildness
Benny Hill
happens.
music everywhere.
And yes. So I've identified several Kuso Bowls, such as the Broncos at the Seahawks in Week 1.
Yes, Panthers at Saints, Giants
Or
at Commanders.
let's see here. What's the worst one of the season is going to be the Panthers at the Broncos in Week 8.
Yeah.
That's going to be a real shit
Maybe
show.
I'll go to that one in person just to see it. We'll see. But there's the third category is what really excites me. Can you explain the third category we have?
Yes. The third category is Gino's favorite, which we call the Wedgie Bowls. That is when a top-ranked team plays a bottom-ranked team.
Yeah, this is where someone gets thrown into the lockers. This is a game where a bad team is just going to get hoisted in all likelihood. This is how you get the 70-20 game. This is where the entertainment value is. This is the juice right here.
And I'm basing this off of the odds instead of the rankings. So a good example would be in Week 2, you have the Las Vegas. I almost said New Vegas. The Las Vegas Raiders at the Baltimore Ravens. The math comes out with odds of 100% for the Ravens to win. 100%, the Ravens are going to win. The Raiders seemingly don't have a snowball's chance in hell.
Mm-hmm. And we will watch some of these wedgie bowls to see if the 100-0s play out.
Yes, and of course, all of these models and predictions will be measured throughout the season. We will check in every now and then to see how things are performing. But yeah, so these 3 types of games make up, I think, a little more than half of all the games in the season. So if you have like a pie chart, half of that is these 3 categories. The other half are just mid. Just, they're games. They happen.
Yes. So throughout the year, we will have some watch parties going on in the Discord. We'll be watching some of these Kuso Bowls, Kame Bowls, Wedgie Bowls. We'll highlight these games, and we might have some watch-alongs. So that should be fun.
Yes, there's actually a poll in the Discord going on as to what people are interested in. Probably, I think it's the poll's closed by the time this episode releases. So, oh well.
But if you're in the Discord, you already saw it, and you'll know which
Yes.
game we were paying attention to.
I'm very much looking forward to these Kuso Bowls because I'm a fan of punts.
You are a huge fan of punts.
And in fact, I think it breaks down evenly. Speaking for Tyler, which I do a lot, he seems to be interested in the Kame Bowls because those are actually quality football games with a high.
It's the only thing that keeps me sane.
Again, I'm here for the Kuso as always, and then as you've heard, Gino's here for the wedgies and shoving nerds into lockers.
That's what I'm here for. I want football snuff films. The game that I remember most vividly outside of Giants Super Bowl wins was I believe it was Giants against Kirk Cousins back when he was on the Washington football team. And I think they sacked him 10 times. I want to say it was 10. It was a lot of times. And I just remember it was a great offense against a bad great defensive line against a bad offensive line. And it looked like a feeding frenzy. It looked like piranhas that had blood in the water. And those are the games that I enjoy. I enjoy when things get out of hand. I enjoy when they have to fill time, when commentators have to fill time. And that's just my thing.
Yeah, so we all have our own fascinations, and we will be dragging the Discord into this argument throughout the season. And that does it for our content today.
Yes. Inaugural episode.
Yes, the inaugural episode. The current plan is to have one of these first week of every month through the Super Bowl. And each week we will be checking in on how things are going in the sport, how our models are performing, and introducing a new model every month. And well, I mean, I don't know about Tyler, but I plan to introduce a new model every month. And I have ideas. I have several ideas.
Looking forward to seeing them, Adam.
I certainly hope so. It's the best math. You're not going to find any better math around.
Watch the model has a high degree of accuracy, and we can take it and outperform Las Vegas.
There we go. So, dear listeners, if you take our picks to the betting tables,
Tell us.
or however you
Tell us when
gamble
you
these
lose,
days
and
on the
remember who to
internet,
blame.
yes, to tell us how much money you lose. But I will tell you in advance, it is solely your
Yep.
fault.
And
I
I
take
will
no
also
responsibility
say
for anything.
these two witches on the show, they did math. I did no math. I have nothing but vibes. That's all I've got. So don't blame me. Not my doing.
So send all of your complaints to the Deep Lessons podcast.
And if you were to do
Is
so,
there
if you
wait?
wanted
Is
to
there-
complain about these picks that you were goaded into doing by your friends on the internet, you could get in touch with the show at Deep Listens Pod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens to get in with those watch parties, those watch-alongs.
Yeah, they'll be fun. There'll be alcohol involved. I can guarantee that part. But you have to
Not for
bring your
me.
own.
But for others.
Not for you.
Or for us.
All right.
You can find me talking about video games sometimes on the Off the Deep End podcast, also in the Deep Listens podcast network, and also on fifthgenerationgaming.blog, where I theoretically have a blog about about video games from the 32-bit generation. If you like video games, check it out.
Tyler, do you have anything to plug?
And Tyler, do you want to plug anything?
You can find me probably tied up and gagged in Adam's
Help.
closet
That is true.
Help.
or basement. Yes, please send help.
All right, and that is a podcast.